What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for double game week 23. So I'm going to take you through how I'm looking, which transfers I'm thinking about making. I do have 2 free transfers this week. Captaincy is kind of obvious, but we'll talk about that as well. And before all that, I'll take you through how I did in game week 22. So if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're not already signed up to my free FPL newsletter, there is a link in the description below. You can subscribe to that, and I'll be sending that out on Friday if you want a snapshot before the deadline happens. So with all that out of the way, let's look at game week 22. 72 points. Which isn't great, especially when I've seen lots of people in the 80s, 90s and 100s. Now, I didn't play my triple captain, so I was always going to be a little bit down points-wise versus the crowd. Obviously, Rashford came in with 20 points, so the triple captain was worth 20 points this week. And I went with Haaland in game week 20, where I only got 8 points. So it's a 12-point loss, which in the grand scheme of things isn't big, but I feel like I'm losing the odd 8 points, 10 points, 12 points on like every single decision at the moment, which is why my overall rank isn't really going anywhere. I actually looked at where it's been since the start of the season. In game week 5, I was 153k. 5 game weeks later, I was outside the top 1 million. So I've clawed that back, but it's just not going anywhere. It's like it's up a little bit, it's down a little bit, it's down a little bit more. And I've not actually had more than 2 green arrows in a row all season. So I've had 2 greens and then a bunch of reds, but never 3 in a row. And I just need that to happen sooner rather than later. So it was a small red arrow down to 562k. Nothing huge or anything like that, but still frustrating. And I think the main problem with my team at the moment is there's lots of good picks in there that everyone else has. Like Rashford, I was already set with Fernandes. I didn't have to take a hit this week to get him in. Martinelli, Saka, White. So I've got my triple Arsenal. Obviously, we'll talk about Martinelli a little bit more soon. Sure, a lot of people have. Everyone has Trippier as well. It just so happens that my picks that people don't have, like Edison, they've got Kepa instead. He's absolutely smashing it. I've got Salah. People have got Kane. He's absolutely smashing it. And obviously Mitrovic hasn't done anything since game week 17. And that was the one week where I didn't own him. And he's missed a few penalties as well. So I wouldn't necessarily call any of those completely bad picks, when I made them, but they have been bad since, right? All those players have been outscored by other players in those positions. So the core of my team is fine, but there are also the players that a lot of other people have, and my different players just aren't doing the business right now. So it is frustrating. Salah blank again, Haaland and Mitrovic both blanked as well. So did all of my Arsenal players. So the only points really came from Man United, right? Shaw got 6 points, even though he conceded twice. That's the beauty of a double game week. Rashford and Fernandes, everyone else literally blanked. So it was a really poor week. 72 points is okay, but another red arrow. Let's see how it goes in game week 23. So with the double game week 25 announcement, it has made some of my decisions for this week a little bit easier. So before I was thinking about doing moves like Edison to Kepa or Ake to a different defender, that would have freed up a Man City slot and allowed me to get someone like De Bruyne or Mahrez instead. But I just can't see the point in doing that anymore. Yes, they've got a double game week this week. And to be fair, their next 2 single game weeks look pretty good. So Forest away and Bournemouth away. But they're almost certainly going to blank in game week 28. And with Champions League starting back up again soon, I just can't be completely confident about the minutes of any of the players that I don't own. So after game week 23, the appeal of Man City players is just getting less and less. Now, this is very team dependent. The fact that I'm already tripled up on Man City definitely helps that decision. And obviously, teams like Arsenal now have a double this week and in 25 and definitely playing 28. So I'm kind of moving towards shifting around my Arsenal players to get the better options from that team instead of using transfers on switching Man City players around. It might be different for you. If you've already got 2 or 3 of Nketiah, Odegaard and Saka, you might not need to use transfers on Arsenal. And if you've only got 2 Man City players, possibly, it is worth getting Mahrez in. Even if his minutes are slightly reduced, he's less than 8 million. There's a lot of upside potential there because of the fixtures over the next 3 game weeks. But for me, it just doesn't feel worth using 2 free transfers to switch Ake to Mahrez, where I would have to sell Bruno Fernandes anyway, who looks pretty good for the next 2 game weeks at least. And I'll probably use that money later on for the blank in 25. If I want to do Ake to De Bruyne, and I am pretty confident about De Bruyne's minutes for the next 2 game weeks at least, I would have to sell Salah. And if Ake plays both games in the double, which, again, maybe not massively confident he starts the Villa game, but I don't know if it's worth taking the risk of removing him, then by getting De Bruyne, I'm not gaining an extra fixture. I'm just losing one from Salah in game week 25. And I would want to reverse that move. So I'd only be getting De Bruyne for 23 and 24 and then going back again. So it just doesn't feel worth 2 free transfers. I've just got to hope that Ake starts twice. And I think that's part of the problem with my team right now. I spoke about in the Game Week 22 review that most of my picks are perfectly fine. They're in a lot of other people's teams, but the 3 or 4 that aren't are not performing, and I do feel a little bit stuck with them right now. So, for example, Ake and Ederson, right? Not a lot of people have got them. They've got Kepa and a different defender, and I've got to keep them because they've got a double game week. So I need them to perform this week before I start thinking about moving them on. And I think I will eventually do Ederson down to Kepa and Ake. Who knows where he might go? But I just think for the next 4 to 5 game weeks, I'm not expecting Ake to start every week because they've got the double this week. I've got to play them. I know that some people are thinking about starting Luke Shaw instead of their Man City defender. I think there's some merit in having that conversation, but as we saw with Shaw in game week 22, he concedes twice and still finishes on 6 points. So if, for example, Ake starts against Villa and gets a clean sheet, whatever he gets against Arsenal is just a bonus then. I don't even really care if he doesn't get the double clean sheet. So that's why I'm going to keep and hold those two, but future game weeks I'll probably look to move them on. Trippier obviously going nowhere right now. Ben White is an interesting conversation because it somewhat feels like a bit of overthinking because every game he's been fit for he has started. There is a risk of him coming off early. He has come off before the 60th minute a couple of times because Tomiyasu is waiting there. Now in some ways having a defender that could come off before the 90th minute is a good thing, but only if they get past the 60th minute, because obviously you want that clean sheet locked in, right? There's no use in them getting a clean sheet, but he comes off on the 59th. If he comes off in the 65th minute with a clean sheet and then Arsenal concede, happy days. But I am wondering, with the extra fixtures that Arsenal got this week in 25 and again playing in 28, is it worth switching Ben White to someone like Gabriel, who looks absolutely nailed on and has a lot of goal threat as well? Now, a lot of people are thinking about Zinchenko right now, but I guess there is still a little bit more competition for his place than there is for Gabriel. So I am considering doing White to Gabriel, and I can do it for free. I think it was probably a mistake to do Patterson to Mings last week. Not getting Mings in wasn't really a massive mistake because of the 2 games he will play in the blank game weeks. But I think I should have moved an Arsenal player on because I could have done White to Gabriel for 1 transfer last week and still had 2 this week. But I don't want that. I don't want to dwell on that too much. And I still want to think about doing it this week. It's just, is it worth 0.5 million more? To do it, I've only got 0.3 in the bank, so I would have to sell Luke Shaw. I was looking at possibly bringing in a Brighton defender and just carrying them through the blank. But now Everton have got a double in 25. I would probably look at someone like Tarkowski, who is only 4.2 million. So that is a move that I'm thinking about doing for my defence. I think Luke Shaw is perfectly fine to hold for the next couple of game weeks if you need him. Leeds away and Leicester at home. But he's not going to play in 25. He's got to play Liverpool in 26. He's probably going to blank in 28. I've got to sell him for that blank anyway, so I feel like I might as well just do it this week. And again, because of that double game week announcement, there's only certain players that I feel comfortable selling this week, and one of them is Luke Shaw, who's on my bench. So that's how my defence is looking. I've got to keep Ederson and Ake. Let's just hope they can get at least 1 clean sheet each. So let's move on to the midfield. And like with Luke Shaw, obviously Rashford and Fernandes are both going to blank in game week 25. And to get a full 11 out that week, I am probably going to have to sell 2 of my Man United players. With Leeds away this week and Leicester at home in 24, I think they're both good fixtures for attackers. So I'm less keen on selling Rashford or Fernandes, and the way the fixtures have fallen and the fact that I'm benching Shaw anyway this week means that he is just the best option for me to sell. I think I will likely bench Rashford in 25, but if Brighton end up doubling in 26 or 27, he might be my best option to get Matoma in, but I'll worry about that down the line. For now, Rashford's absolutely staying. And similarly with Fernandes, I think I've spoken a lot that he will be a cash cow for me, so eventually I will probably move the funds out of that position either into defence to a different midfielder or into the forward line. That could well be Trent Alexander-Arnold for game week 25 or Darwin Nunez in the forward line, because obviously Liverpool have a double in 25, but I just don't see any rush to do that right now. I think Everton at home is still a pretty good fixture, but Newcastle away is much tougher, and I want to see if there's any signs of improvement for Liverpool over the next 2 weeks before I commit to having more than just Salah. And obviously players could come back as well, like Jota, Van Dijk especially, they would be big pluses to Liverpool. So I want to wait before I make that move. But that is probably the ultimate plan for Fernandes. Right now, if I had to say, it would probably be for Darwin Núñez. But who knows? Maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold will be the way to go. Maybe I'll get neither of them. But that's the rough plan. With Salah, he has to stay now because of the double game week. I think people, still saying I'm being stubborn and stuff like that. The reason I know that is the correct move is because if I hadn't owned Salah since game week 17, so I just watched from afar, watching in blank every single week, and I had Harry Kane instead, I would probably be right now making a plan to get Salah in for game week 25, whether that's for Kane or for Fernandes, it doesn't matter. But the fact that I would do that anyway, if I hadn't owned him, means it's definitely the right call for my team to hold on to him, right? My hope at this point, and the hope is very low, is that he just matches Harry Kane. I don't even care if he outscores him. Just match Harry Kane for 23 and 24, and then you've got the double, and hopefully he can do something. If he doesn't, so be it, but there's no way I can sell him now that he's got a double. I wouldn't say forced into it, but before that double game week was announced, I was strongly considering just moving to Kane to put myself out of my misery, but now I just can't do that. So he's staying. Saka is definitely staying as well, because I think he is the #1 Arsenal player to own right now. So then it's about Martinelli. Now, I discussed last week about possibly moving him to Odegaard, because we knew Trossard would mean less minutes for Martinelli. I don't think most of us were prepared for a pre-60-minute sub. A lot of that was with how the game was going. Even Odegaard came off a little bit earlier than normal, but I'm still tempted to make that move. Now, if I wanted to keep Ben White, because I was confident that he was going to keep starting, I can just do the same move for Luke Shaw to Tarkowski for 4.2 and then just get Odegaard for free. And again, I should have done White to Gabriel or Martinelli to Odegaard last week for one transfer, and then I could have done the other one this week, but obviously I didn't. The other thing that I'm considering is this. Is just to do all 3 moves this week and just take a -4 hit. Now, you can frame it in different ways, right? You could say that Gabriel is coming in for free and that's okay, and Martinelli to Odegaard is for the hit, so that's all right. Obviously, if you did it the other way, Martinelli for free and Gabriel for a hit, it doesn't look quite so good. But I'm tempted to do it because I think Nketiah looks really good until Jesus is back, right? I'm not disputing that. Outside of that, I think the best 3 Arsenal are Gabriel, Odegaard and Saka, and I can get there for a -4 whilst not having to sell Fernandes and whilst still having triple Man City. And I just think it might be worth taking that hit just for almost peace of mind, right? I'm not saying that is a logical reason to take a hit, but sometimes it helps to just be happy with how your FPL team is, and later on that's going to give me more of a chance to make other moves that I want to make instead. So I'm very tempted to do this. I do think there's maybe some... I don't know, sometimes people say it's overthinking, and I just think to myself, no, I'm just thinking about all possibilities, but we haven't seen Ben White not start yet. But the one thing we have to say, with 2 double game weeks, like in quick succession in the next 3, that's a bit of extra fixture congestion, so maybe there will be some changes. I don't know. They've been doing really well without Tomiyasu. Arteta doesn't strike me, at least from what we've seen so far this season, as someone that wants to tinker too much. And I don't think that Martinelli's starting place is really up for grabs either, but you just don't know, and that's the thing. And for 4 points, I think I'll be very, very happy with my team for this week at least, and then going forward. I don't have to worry about those Arsenal players unless they get injured. For what it's worth, I think Nketiah is still pretty good. It's just not worth it for my team to try and get him in. And there's reports that Jesus could be back at some point in March. Now, game week 25, the second game, is at the start of March. And I think it's game week 28 or 27 at the end. So he might come back at some point there, and that would make Nketiah worse. I think he's fine to bring in if you've got an easy way to do it, but it's just not worth it for my team. So they are the main 2 moves I'm thinking about. I think I probably would prioritise Odegaard in before Gabriel. Maybe there's a little bit more upside there, even though I still worry about what Martinelli might do if I sell him. Or I just take the 4-point hit. I think that's the main 2 moves that I'm looking at for this team. But ultimately, Salah's staying. And then up front, it's the same as it has been for a little while. So Haaland, Mitrovic, and then Greenwood on the bench. Obviously, I am ruining a little bit not doing the Greenwood to Gnonto move last week, because he did really well in double game week 22. If I could have done it for 1 free transfer, I probably would have. But it would have meant using both of my free transfers, and I just didn't feel like it was worth it. Right now, that looks like a bad decision. We'll see how that works out down the line. I think if I don't get Darwin Núñez in 25, there is a chance that I might do the Greenwood to Gnonto onto a move then, but that's something that I will decide later rather than right now. With Mitrovic, I just cannot get rid of him before Nottingham Forest at home. It just feels like a crazy thing to even think about. And to be honest, even if I wanted to get rid of him, because he has ultimately been very frustrating recently with all those missed penalties, I don't even have a great move for him, because to get Kane I'd have to sell Salah, and he's got the double coming up soon. If I wanted to get Nketiah, I'd have to free up an Arsenal spot, and I just think doing Martinelli to Odegaard is better than doing Martinelli to Nketiah and having to sell Mitrovic as part of that. And if we look at him going forward, look, maybe at some point soon I'll have to sell, but it's probably not going to be before game week 25, because when that's a blank game week for some teams and a double for others, he has got a fixture against Wolves at home. Forest at home is great as well, so the only tough one really is Brighton away, and I'm prepared to hold someone through that that's absolutely nailed on. After that, it gets a bit trickier. Brentford away, Arsenal at home. He might not even play in game week 28. We'll have to see what happens in the FA Cup, but again, it's a transfer that can wait until down the line. I don't need to decide what to do with Mitrovic right now. So I'm going to keep him for Nottingham Forest at home. Haaland will definitely be my captain this week. I know there's all this talk about whether he's in form or out of form. What are Man City doing right now? Are they better off without him? Ultimately, he's still scoring plenty of goals. And the only other option for me is Saka, who isn't necessarily a bad option with 2 home fixtures, but I'm just not prepared to be punished by Haaland anymore. And I find the out of form talk quite funny, because if you look at recent returns since game week 17, which was just after the World Cup, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 goals in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fixtures. So he's got 7 in 7, and that is apparently out of form, mostly because we've been spoilt by what he did before. Like, if you look at this run between game weeks 4 to 9, he got 3 hat-tricks. Absolutely ridiculous. Most players are not going to keep that up, and I remember saying that at the time. The problem was he just kept punishing me week after week, and it's now that he's not doing quite as well. But also, if you look at the fixtures he's blanked in, Spurs away, Man United away, and Chelsea away, and on paper they're always going to be difficult fixtures, despite what people say. Things like they're not playing well right now, Haaland, fixtures don't matter. Guess what? They do matter, just sometimes he does really well anyway. He just hasn't in these. So I think, given that he's blanked in fairly difficult fixtures, 2 against Leeds, 1 goal against Everton, 1 against Spurs, 3 against Wolves. That is not a player that's out of form in good fixtures. And yes, Arsenal away is tough. He might blank in that game, but Villa at home is a really nice fixture. So I'm definitely captaining him. I know some people are saying that Villa's going to be tough and they're all right under Emery and stuff like that. And, he's good at tactics and he'll have a plan. But then I just think to myself, why didn't he have that plan for Leicester, right, when they conceded a whole bunch of goals? So, look, I don't need to spend too much more time telling you why I'm captaining Haaland. It's very obvious. That is my team as it stands. I think my move is almost certainly going to be Luke Shaw to Tarkowski from Everton. It's just about what I do with my other moves. So Marseille to Odegaard I think is a goer. It's just whether or not I do White to Gabriel. So let me know what you think about those plans. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.